What's up guys, my name is Natalie and welcome to my Nook of Novels. Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up. Now please pretend that it is not the middle of April when I am doing this video. I meant to do it 2 weeks ago and then that didn't happen, and then I meant to do it last week and then that didn't happen, so this video is finally going up. Apologies for it being so late. So let's just get right into the things that I read in March. So the first thing I read was my punishment book, which was Safe House by Tom Clancy from the Net4 series, and as expected, I did not like this book at all. I gave it 1.5 stars. I don't have a ton to say about it, but first of all, it is part of a series and it's not the first book, so that already added some confusion to it, but it wasn't even really that it was confusing. It just, nothing really happened. It kind of felt like just part of a story. I feel like it was just too short for anything to have happened in it, and I'm fine with that because I didn't like what I read, so I feel like if they added more to it, I would have just been reading it for a longer period of time and been even more sad about it. Basically, this organization was just like, we gotta hunt down that person. And then the person was like, oh no, better get to safety. And that's all that happened in this entire book. There was a cool kind of virtual reality-esque world, kind of like Ready Player One or Warcross, if you've read that, but much less exciting and descriptive and just less good. There was kind of a subplot about some race/battle thing with these ship things. That could have been exciting, but I feel like it just didn't go into that enough and it just didn't really make a lot of sense and I just didn't care that much, so yeah. I honestly skimmed the last 2/3 of this because I was like, I just want to get through this so that I can get to the books that I actually want to read. The next thing that I finished was listening to the audiobook for The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee, and I actually really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. So it follows Monty, who is kind of this troublemaker-esque character. He is also bisexual, and he basically is going on a tour around Europe with his best friend and his sister. Basically, his father is not happy with him at all because he's doing all of these things that he shouldn't be doing, and he's basically having too much fun, and his father's like, you have to be professional, you can't be acting like that. It's really interesting. The characters are really what made this story. They're just so fun, and them interacting together is just so much fun to read. Monty is very sarcastic and just very laid back, and then his sister Felicity is just super serious about everything, and then Percy, he's a mix of like super fun and super serious, and all of the characters just mesh so well together, and it's just a really fun story. But it does have some serious topics as well, such as abuse. The next thing I read was Fallout by Ellen Hopkins. So this was my least favorite book from the Crank trilogy, if I'm being honest. It wasn't bad necessarily. I still gave it 4 stars, but it just wasn't like the other 2 books, which blew my mind and broke my heart, and they were just so good. But this one, it just didn't live up to the first 2 because it follows the children of the main character of the first 2 books, and it switches perspectives between 3 of them, I believe. And it just isn't as exciting because you don't get as attached to the characters, and I think there's more of a plot happening in this book, but it's just not as fun. That's not the word I'm looking for. These books are not fun at all, but there's more of a plot happening, but I just don't find myself caring about it as much. The ending of the book was very unsatisfying to me because there is kind of the climactic event that happens, but it's very anticlimactic. You know that this thing is going to happen. It's building up to it, and then it does, and there's not anything resulting from that. It's there, and you're like, oh, okay, the characters are just vibing in this new situation now, and that's all. There's no side effects, no chain reactions, nothing major happens. They're just there, and they were like, oh, okay, this is how it is. And it's like, okay, and why did I read this entire book for that? You know what I mean? Something that really made the first 2 books so good is that the entire time, especially in the first book, you're not expecting so much bad stuff to happen. You're like, okay, this character is, starting off strong. There's a few bad things that happen, but things can definitely go up from here, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse, and you're like, oh my god, is anything, like, could it get any worse? And then it does, and you're like, oh my gosh. In this book, there were some bad things happening, but it wasn't like that at all, where it just kept getting worse and worse, and you're just so upset for these characters. They do a couple little bad things, and you're like, that's not very good, but then you don't care enough to be upset about it, really. There's not really repercussions for their bad decisions, and nothing else really happens aside from that, and you're just like, okay, cool, whatever, moving on. And it's just less exciting than the first book was, and I enjoyed it less. But again, I still enjoyed it quite a bit, and I do really want to read more from this author because her books are told in poetry, which is very interesting to read, and I really like that. And also, as much as I loved the first 2 books, and even though this one wasn't as good, I'm sure that I will still really love some of her other books, so I do want to read them. The final thing that I read in March was Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I read this for school. Considering the plot of this, I enjoyed it more than I would expect to because I don't really like survival stories. I think that they're really dumb and unrealistic because if you take a bunch of kids and throw them in the woods, they're probably gonna get attacked by an animal or something or just die of starvation. Realistically, if you threw me in the woods right now, I would be screwed. A lot of books like Hatchet and My Side of the Mountain, if you saw my book ranting video, I discussed that about those. I'll link it down below if you guys want to go check it out. But things like that, I just despise because, like I said, it's so unrealistic. And especially when I was reading My Side of the Mountain, I didn't have a clue any of the things that the kid was talking about. He was like, oh, I'm going to do this thing and that thing and that thing. And I'm like, what do those even mean? How do you know what those mean? How do you know what you're doing? That's why I was not really sure when I started reading this book because I didn't know what it was about going into it. And then I started reading it and I was like, oh, it's one of those. But it actually was better than I expected it to be because the children are not extremely successful for no reason. Because there's a lot of them, it makes it easier for them to figure some things out, but then also they're always fighting. No matter what, these children cannot agree on anything, and I think that that is what makes them struggle so much. If they could just agree, even if it was an agree to disagree sort of thing where this kid's gonna go do this thing and that one's gonna do that, and they're gonna basically work together to divide and conquer and get all the things done for these children in order for them to survive, that would work. But no, this kid is like, I want to do this thing and we're all gonna do it because I want to. It is just so chaotic and such a struggle, and some of these characters just need some help. That being said, I wasn't super attached to the characters in this one either. They weren't very exciting to me. You could tell that this one was kind of crazy, this one was kind of smart, this one you just kind of felt bad for him because nobody listened to him. But there wasn't a ton of development. There was a lot developing. They're arguing and stuff, but not necessarily them as people, if that makes sense. I don't feel like I got to know all of these people as individuals, just kind of how they were as political figures, if that makes sense. But again, I still gave it 3.75 stars and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, so that's good. Hi guys, so I just wanted to pop in real quick to talk about my Rainbow Readathon book for March because for some reason I always forget to mention that when I'm filming videos. I promise I do think about it a lot and actively try to make sure that I have books on my TBR that will fulfill those prompts, but I just always forget whenever I go to film videos. Safe House has yellow on the cover around the word Net Force, and Fallout also has yellow on it, but it's kind of a weird color that's sort of yellowy, sort of greenish kind of. I would consider that yellow, but just in case, this also has yellow on it, so that is covered either way, so we're good. So those are all of the things that I read in April. No, I don't even know what month it is. Those are all the things that I read in March. Hopefully I will get a little bit more done in April. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then please hit the like button and subscribe if you would like to, and hit the notification bell if you would like to see the other videos that I post on Mondays usually. Last week, obviously, that did not happen. I will try my darndest to have a video up every Monday, if not at some point during the week. I will have my Bookstagram and Goodreads linked in the description if you would like to check out either of those. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!